myself, Arvind. I work as a developer advocate at Elastic. I work in the community, do a lot of things, speaking to developers, helping run meetups or doing a lot. Today, we also have another colleague of mine, Kavnish. Hi, Kavnish. So Kavnish is
Hello.
from Sydney, and she's joining us. She's our community programs associate, and she kind of looks after the community in the APJ. And if you have more questions, you can also ask her, or share feedback about the topics that you want to see, anything and everything around community, both of us. So please feel free to put everything in the chat. So we also have our speaker today, Subhadeep, which I'll give in a minute, and probably he'll take us through the session today. I'll give his intro in a minute, but then we also have a speaker. So, but then all of you are okay. You can unmute yourself and ask questions even in between, or put that in the chat or a Q&A bar. We'll come to the every question. We'll make sure that we answer all the questions, and then please keep muted yourself on otherwise, so that the session is being recorded. So that being said, once again, welcome to the meetup. As a start, I would just want to remind everyone that we have the Global Elasticon happening on October 5th to 7th next month. And we have a lot of workshops. That's why it is titled as Solve. So we want to invite all the solvers. We want to invite all the people who are interested in getting skilled on various cloud-related technologies or web-related technologies or anything that is related to DevOps, etc. We have a lot of workshops. We have a lot of interactive sessions with Elasticians. There are a lot of keynotes, right, from the CEO, CPO to everyone. So on Elastic Stack and roadmaps, everything. So feel free to join us. Feel free to ask as many as questions. And as you could see that I put the link in the registration page, in the chat. So, but this is the place where you could get registered, elastic.co/elasticonglobal. So I look forward to seeing you all as well. So that being said, I want to just take a few more minutes before I hand it over to Subhadeep, our speaker today, is about the Elastic user groups. I want to talk about that. So we have a lot of user groups, both in India as well as globally. We run more than 600 events every year, and there's a lot of developer interactivity that we do. And we always encourage you to be part of it and share what you're learning in the community. So Subhadeep came forward and said that he will do this session by himself. So we didn't ask them. So similar way, I think I would request you to do the same thing as well. If you have questions or if you want to share your knowledge, your skill set, please do that as well. And for all the related things, like where this video will be hosted, obviously you could scan this QR code where you could get the YouTube channel where the video will be hosted. That's our community YouTube channel. Then we have a Slack workspace as well, where we have more than 9,000, nearly 10,000 people. I think probably we'll get to that this weekend itself. So 10,000 people from Elastic Slack community are joining. And then they're discussing a lot of things every day. And then we have the virtual group through which you joined this particular webinar, which is the APJ virtual user group. That is a meetup group where we are all collaborating. And if you have more questions, I would keep saying probably please raise a post in discuss.elastic.co. So that is our technical forum where you could raise all the questions as well. So if you are interested to contribute and you also want to get some special swag or get some recognition, we have a contributor recognition program, even though the name says contributor program, where you could contribute just by answering questions, not just code, answering questions, helping community, doing talks, running events, doing a lot of things, right? So you could participate in the contributor program as well. We do it as an annual cycle, and we give a lot of interesting badges as well as I don't say gift, but then these are it could be something like a training subscription to the range of a t-shirt or a lot of these things. So please see about contributor program in the QR code. You can scan the QR code or go to the link below. I would kind of share the dais to Subhadeep so that he could come and talk about benefits of running Elastic Stack on Kubernetes using the operator, which is Elastic Cloud and Kubernetes, ECK. So over to you, Subhadeep. I'll just stop sharing.
Yeah. Hi, Arvind. Thanks for giving me this platform to explain this topic for today, especially on weekends, where everybody has turned up to join this particular meeting. So, yeah, so I'll quickly share my screen.
So one thing that I told while Subhadeep was trying to share the screen, like if you have any questions, please raise your hand. I'll help facilitate and take that question to Subhadeep. So you could raise your hand and we'll take the question then and there. Don't wait it till the end. I think I want it to be so interactive. That's why we are not directly doing it on YouTube live stream and we are doing it on the Zoom call so that you could all talk to us. Keep it very interactive. Yeah. So please raise your hand if you have a question and then come to you and then we can ask and we can probably take that question then and there. Yeah. Subhadeep, sure. Please go ahead.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Arvind. So hope my presentation is visible to all. Arvind?
Yes, it is.
Cool. So hi all, warm welcome on a Saturday morning. Thanks that people have joined this conference and virtual meetup today. So I'll be speaking on a topic which is like Elasticsearch, which most of the people in the industry are using Elasticsearch if they want to scrutinize their logs of their executions or any kind of application logs, DB server logs, or any kind of monitoring logs if they want to monitor. So Elasticsearch is one of the main tools which we use in our project. So here the topics, whatever the topic I'm going to explain today, it's a bit different, but also in the same, it is in line whatever we are currently doing with the Elasticsearch tool. So the difference is that whatever the advantages of Elasticsearch, we will get as it is, as the official Elastic community has provided to us. However, the installation and managing the cluster, this is kind of like if we install Elastic tool using virtual machines and all, it's kind of a tedious task. Instead of if we host this particular cluster on a Kubernetes namespace, how useful and how advantage the task is, that is the topic for me for today. Now, to talk about myself, Shubhadeep Ganguly. I am working with SAP in a cloud and DevOps role, and I am working on different open source tool, creating the framework for different teams, and managing the entire end-to-end lifecycle for performance solutions or the cloud solutions. So this is overall my portfolio. So I am also certified in AWS, Google Cloud, and Microsoft Azure. And also currently I'm working on different tools and technology on the like Elasticsearch, InfluxDB, Grafana, in those tools. So with this, I'll move forward to the next topic, the next slide. So the topic is today benefit of running Elasticsearch on Kubernetes using an operator. So let's start the topic by revisiting the concept of operator. So what is operator? Now, operators are nothing, but this is an extension to the Kubernetes that uses the custom resource to manage different applications. So by using this custom resource definition, that is CRD, so I can define my custom resource. And when you define a CRD object, it create a new resource with a name and schema that I specify. For example, that is for our example, that is Elasticsearch. Instead of Elasticsearch, I can use the CRD for creating a CRD for Mongo or InfluxDB, anything. So it's kind of a custom resource definition, which is apart from the deployment, stateful set, and other definitions, which is available in Kubernetes. So using operator pattern, what I can do, like using operator, I can add the custom resource definition and controller to my cluster, and I can automate various repeatable tasks. And the controller will normally run outside of the control plane. So hope if somebody is working on Kubernetes, he might be aware of the control plane. So control plane is kind of like here also we are using the concept of control plane while installing this ELK operator. So it's kind of a head or the heart of the entire cluster. So control plane actually manages the entire cluster. It communicates with different worker nodes where we are deploying our applications, and it communicates with etcd API server and other resources from the control plane. So it will always run any containerized application. So that's the advantage of Kubernetes operator, which we will be using for installing the Elasticsearch tool as well in our own cluster. So moving forward to the next slide. Now, what is Elasticsearch operator? Now, as you gone through my previous slide, that is concept of operator, which uses a CRD, that is custom resource definition. Using this custom resource definition, I can configure my Elasticsearch environment to deploy in my own namespace. Now, Elasticsearch operator automates the process of managing Elasticsearch on Kubernetes. So there are few different Elasticsearch operators are available. I can choose from any of them. Some of them are active by open source contributors, but the main advantage is like that Elasticsearch operators simplifies deploying the whole Elastic stack on Kubernetes, which gives the flexibility to automate and streamline critical operations. Like what I can do, I can add, remove, and update resources with ease. Like I just need to execute some commands which will update and add any kind of resources. Like if I want to scale up or scale down my cluster, I can just simply execute some command like auto scaling capabilities, and then it will scale up my Elasticsearch cluster with the help of this operator. So what are the advantages I have just mentioned? It helps us to manage multiple clusters. If in case of any version upgrade is there, using some definition file, we can update the versions. And as I mentioned, it also helps to scaling the cluster capacity. So auto scaling is already implemented. So configuration change of the cluster. And if I want to add some storage or dynamically scales the storage, so that is also possible using this Elasticsearch operator. And also I can schedule my backups, whatever the backups periodically I am taking. So I can schedule taking those backups, and also like storage capabilities, I can dynamically provision the storage using storage class, which is already available in Kubernetes namespace. So that is also possible for PVC or dynamically storage capacity. So that is the flavor is provided by Kubernetes. So whenever we are using the technology for Kubernetes, if I dynamically provision my storage without manually provisioning the PVs, so I can use the storage class concept, which can dynamically store my and scale my storage. So next is why. Like what is the advantage? Why ELK operator? So the concept is that it helps for taking the deployments in a very easier manner, like Elasticsearch, Kibana, and APM server deployments. Then I can also manage the TLS, like mutual tenant certificates management, like three-way handshake. All these things are easily possible using the ELK operator, like mutual TLS enablement for encryption. All these things are possible using this ELK operator. And safely Elasticsearch cluster configuration and different topology changes. And one more thing, what I was explaining, that PV, that is a persistence volume. So whenever we are using in stateful sets, we have to use persistent volume. So using the ELK operator, it gives us the flexibility and also a kind of manageability to use the persistent volume. So whenever any pod goes down, if second pod comes up, it can use that particular data which was actually contributing by the deleted pod. So that's the concept of persistent volume. Whenever we are dealing with persistent volumes or specifically for stateful set, we have to manage our persistent volume. So this ELK operator gives us the flexibility to use this persistent volume. So next is that custom node configuration. So custom node configuration, that is also possible whenever I want to deploy a specific node with specific attributes and match labels and selectors. So that things is also given by this ELK operator. And none of like last but not the least, that security settings, keystone updates. So that is also being given by the ELK operator. So moving forward to the next slide, like as you all have observed, these are the advantage of ELK operator. But is there any disadvantage? Yes, for every tool, every machine, or every technology, there are some advantages, there are some disadvantages. So the main difference is that sometimes disadvantages are less. For that, like we can adopt those challenges so that we can use the advantages in a better manner. So here only I'll just explain what are the disadvantages and how we can overcome them. So this is pretty simple. Like you have to learn an additional tool. So for that you have to manage your team to teach them or to educate them for Kubernetes and this ELK operator thing. So an additional technology you have to adopt. So additional Kubernetes resource in a separate namespace, and you have to have some overhead for creating these operator things and fine-tune control. So these are some minimal disadvantages. So basically, you have to have a running cluster with a proper capacity, with a good capacity to hold and manage the entire cluster, and you have to have the technology learning to implement this kind of tools in your existing Elasticsearch cluster. So that's all about advantages and disadvantages. So next slide is
so there is one question about from the community about what are the use cases that you or your colleagues use Elasticsearch at SAP? If you could also include in one of your slide, that would be great. Use cases specifically.
Yeah, that will be that's a good question. Thanks, Arvind. So I was in PPT mode, so I did not see that. Thanks that you have informed me. So use cases are suppose you are running kind of performance jobs or automation jobs, kind of if you are running your performance test, or if you are running your test automation suite in a particular product, where you have to monitor whatever the application logs, whatever your microservice application, whatever your own that application can be on React.js, that can be on any technologies. Whenever you are running your performance test or test automation suite on any application, so there are application logs will be generated. If you run performance tests as we have implemented that, so that's why I'm giving an example. So if you're running your JMeter test, so there will be some application logs which you have to monitor, like if there are any exceptions are coming, what is the capacity of the cluster, whatever the status of those applications. So these kind of logs, also whatever the transactions are going through. So these kind of logs you have to monitor. So for that particular purpose, what we have done, we have installed different Elasticsearch nodes, and we have created discovery seeds between all those clusters. And then using already available tools of Elasticsearch, that is Metricbit and Filebit, we are actually pushing those logs to the cluster, and then we are observing those logs in the Kibana tool. And here comes the use case where you have used Elasticsearch tool. So hope I is able to explain the particular use case. In case of any queries, I'll again get back to all after end of this session or in the medium. So so these are, so I was talking about the prerequisite. So prerequisite is something like you have to have a Kubernetes cluster with RBAC enabled, like you have to have a role-based access control. You have to enable that, ensuring that your cluster has enough resources. And also you have to have the capability that you have to scale your Kubernetes nodes in case if not enough resources are available. So you have to have that kind of clustering mechanism enabled on your particular namespace. So you can create a specific namespace and you can enable these things. Also, you can have a minimum of 4 GB of RAM and 10 GB of storage for managing at least a minimal cluster on the Kubernetes namespace. And you have to have that kubectl tool installed in your local machine to run different commands on this ELK operator. So these are some basic prerequisites which you have to have before you install or use this Elasticsearch operator on Kubernetes. So you have to have a specific CPU and memory, and you have to have a scaling enabled cluster, and also you have a command line tool installed for Kubernetes. Now, next is how you can install the Elasticsearch operator. So it is pretty simple. If you want to install the Elasticsearch operator, you have to use the custom resource definition. So these custom resource definitions are available in the official link of Elasticsearch. You have to go to this download.elastic.co, and there is an ECK package is available. So based on your version requirement, you can download that, and you can just use an kubectl apply -f and that custom resource definition.yml, and your cluster will be up with this Elasticsearch operator. So now once you once you do this configuration changes to your cluster. So this is the view of the Elasticsearch cluster on your Kubernetes namespace. So you have kind of like you can see this operator that will be live under the Elastic System namespace. So there will be an namespace will be created once you create this operator. So Elastic System namespace will be created, and you can monitor the logs using this particular operator. So there will be kind of a pod, there will be a couple of services, and there will be one stateful set which will be created on this particular namespace. And the next command which I have mentioned, kubectl port forward services Elasticsearch-es-http. So if you can see in the kubectl get all command, it is having a service name Elasticsearch-es-http. This service is created on a cluster IP. It is having a particular IP address. It will be created. So if you want to see this particular Elasticsearch on a particular host, suppose say local host, and Elasticsearch, if you are not aware, it runs mainly on 9200 and 9300 port. So you have to use this kubectl port forward command, services, the service name and the port number. It will make sure that your Elasticsearch running in 9200 port on your local on a particular host. So this is how you can view if your cluster is running or not on Elasticsearch by using these commands. Next is configuring your Elasticsearch to run multiple pods. Now, in the previous example, I have explained with that you can create one pod. So if you can see here, there is only one pod it was created. It was created at Elasticsearch ES default 0. So with that custom resource definition, you are only using, you are able to create only one pod. Now, if your requirement says that I have to create multiple pods and you have to run 3 pods, so what you will do? So there is a command is there, so which I explained here. So in the node set, you have to give the count as 3. So suppose you want to run more than 3 pods. So here you have to specify the count. So this is a definition file where you can see the kind is Elasticsearch. So kind, if you use Kubernetes, the kind can be deployment, stateful set, service. So those are Kubernetes core services, like Kubernetes core terminologies. So here you are using custom resource definition, that is CRD. So that's why the kind is Elasticsearch, because this deployment is a custom resource definition which is given by Elasticsearch. So here you have mentioned kind as Elasticsearch and count is 3. If you execute this command, your cluster will be executed with more than 3 or whatever the pod you specified on the count parameter. Now this will bump up your pod count, and after if you do that kubectl get all command, you will be able to see there are more than 1 pods are running in the Elasticsearch cluster. So that's all how you can scale up or add more capabilities on your cluster in the Elasticsearch namespace. Next is storage. Now, if I want to add storage to your Elasticsearch Kibana production cluster, so as you mentioned, as I mentioned, this is kind of an use case where I need to use the Elasticsearch on production level use case also. So for that, we are having a concept of creating these volumes. So if I want to use that volumes, so I have to use this particular template. So the difference is that in the template, the remaining things are same, like it is kind of Elasticsearch, count is 3, configuration, master, data ingest, everything is set. You have to add the parameter called volume claim templates. So here you are mentioning that particular configuration for adding a storage. So if you are aware of persistence volumes, so persistence volumes provide parameter like storage class and access mode. So here also volume claim templates, I am configuring my access mode. So there are 3 access modes are available: read write once, read write many, and read only many. So if I want to use the volume claim template with multiple pods, I will use read write many. But in this particular access mode, I am using read write once. So with that, I can only connect with a single pod as it read write once. And you are configuring a storage class. So this storage class is actually storage class is kind of dynamically provisioning your Elasticsearch cluster. So that's why you have mentioned the storage class name and the storage capacity. So whenever you provision your cluster with the storage capacity, it actually provisions and it maps to a persistent volume with a particular storage capacity. So think about a user. So I am an user and I want to use a persistent volume. So I'll create a claim that I want a storage capacity of 4 GB with a standard storage class and with a read write once mode enabled. So based on that, your Kubernetes will provision a persistent volume for your cluster with this specific storage capacity. As I am using a storage class, so even if this persistent volume is not existing, it will dynamically provision a storage and it will add to your cluster to be used for your pod. So that's the advantage, and that is the core advantage of using a dynamic storage capacity for a protectionless cluster. So yeah, that's the volume claim template I was just explaining. So if you go to elastic.co.guide cloud on Kubernetes volume claim templates, you'll be able to see the entire definition, whatever I just explained here. So that's all. That's the main essence of using the storage, and you can get the information from this reference link. So next is that if, as I mentioned, volume claim template, whatever I just explained. So if I want the control of deletion, so if you if you want to control the deletion of these volume claims, so whenever you want to create a new volume claim, or if you want to control this deletion, so there is an resource available. So actually Elasticsearch automatically deletes these persistent volume resources if these are scaled down, but there is a storage reclaim policies there which you can implement. So based on that, your so if you use that delete on, scale down, and cluster deletion, and delete on, scale down only, so these are the values which you can provide in the volume claim delete policy. So here you can see this is kind of a custom resource definition where I have used that volume claim delete policy is that delete on, scale down only. So in case if this is in effect, that all these persistent volumes claims will be deleted together whenever this particular Elasticsearch is scaled down. So it only keeps the persistent volume claims when deleting the Elasticsearch cluster. And if you create a deleted cluster with the same name, then your persistent, whatever the PVC, that's the persistent claim volumes which are existing, it will be adopted by the new cluster. So this is the advantage of ECK operator, that your storage cost will go down because you are writing this claim delete policy. Whenever your cluster is deleted, these PVs or PVCs will be deleted, and whenever you recreate this cluster, existing this persistent volume will be reused for your new plots or new cluster. So that's all about how you control the deletion of volume claim templates. Next is that Kibana. So now Elasticsearch is it is an by default there is an UI which is provided by official Elasticsearch. So this is called Kibana. So this operator is called ECK. It's because there is a specific reason, because it comes packaged with Kibana. So whatever the Elasticsearch operator till now we are actually talking, this is nothing but an ECK operator. Because there is a concept of Kibana, there is a tool called Kibana which is actually comes packaged with this. So that's why the tool is called ECK. So if you use this ECK operator and if you use this particular command, so you will be able to see these are some CRDs, the custom resource definition will be created. One is the Kibana, one is the Elasticsearch, and is the APM servers. And if you use kubectl get Kibana, you'll be able to see what are the status of your Elasticsearch cluster. Now in this thing, I have given a sample file which you use to run and deploy Kibana with Elasticsearch operator. So as earlier you are using kind as Elasticsearch. So if you use Kibana, so you have to use the kind as Kibana, and metadata will refer to the same Elasticsearch which is already deployed in your cluster. So in this custom resource definition, you have to mention the kind as Kibana and the specification version and the count of the count of the pods you have to specify in the version and count column. So that's how you can deploy a Kibana with the Elasticsearch operator. So only you have to mention and you have to change the value of the key value pair of kind. So this is how your cluster will look like when your entire cluster is up. and you have to use that kubectl get pod, and you have to use the selector. So using that selector, you'll be able to view the status. Like if it is 1 by 1 ready, that means your readiness probe is completely connected to your Kube API server, and it's able to make the Elasticsearch up. And you have to wait till you get the status as ready 1 by 1. Until this, you have to wait. And once your readiness probes and other configurations are up, and it is able to communicate to your API server, your Elasticsearch cluster will be up and running, and you'll be able to see in your browser. So this is how your cluster will look like when the health is green. And if you want to access the Kibana, so Kibana, as you all might be knowing, or someone might not know, Kibana is accessed in the port 5601. Like Elasticsearch was accessed in 9200, Kibana will be accessed in 5601 port. And using these commands, you can access your Elasticsearch Kibana tool in your particular port. Like if you want to do a port forward to your local host, so after this particular command is run, we can open your local host in 5601, and your Kibana will be available with the login as Elasticsearch user. So that's how you can access your Kibana cluster. And last but not the least, after everything is done, if you want to clean your cluster, you can just use the command as kubectl delete elastic space dash dash all, and in all the namespace wherever Elasticsearch is deployed. So using that, you can delete the entire cluster. You can later you can again spin up your cluster with the step mentioned below. So that's how your cluster will be looking after everything is set up. And using the delete command, you can delete your entire cluster. So that's all from my end. So I have explained the concept, whatever we use for using the ECK operators. So over to Arvind for any Q&A.
Yeah, great. It was a great session, Subhadeep. Thank you for giving the session. There were not so many questions, but then folks, you could unmute yourself and ask the questions by yourself if you have anything related to Kubernetes and Elasticsearch or data or storage. I have some questions. I'll ask Subhadeep, but then please feel free to ask questions, and then you could unmute yourself. Okay, let me start, and then folks could follow. Yeah. So Subhadeep, one quick question that I have is, say if I want to attach a third-party volume, say something like, I want to attach OpenEBS or storage, some different sort of a storage, and do some sort of and claim that from where should I edit? What place should I edit? And what is the right place? You spoke about persistent volume claims.
Yeah.
I just want to.
So you can use this persistent volume. So it supports this particular in the storage class for dynamically provisioning. So in that particular storage definition, you can use this type. Like if you want to use that EBS. So suppose you want to use for AWS storage class or Azure storage class for backend. So you can mention this thing in the persistent volume claim, and there you can mention what kind of storage class and what kind of storage you want to mount to your particular cluster. So basically, whenever you create a claim using PVC, so that particular storage, if it is already existing in the persistent volume, so it is a one-to-one mapping. Like, so if you create those claim, so in that claim you have to mention what kind of storage you want to add to your cluster or to your pod. Based on that, the specific PV will be provisioned.
Okay, that's great. So I could use any third party, right? Not just I could use NetApp or like different storage as well, right? That is.
Actually, yeah. So whatever the cloud storage is available, so I know like it supports that AWS and Azure and Google Cloud. So if NetApp storage you want to use, if it is supported to that particular cluster, definitely it will be. So that persistent volume, if it is existing, it will support definitely. But you have to write that definition based on that supportability.
Okay. And one another question that I have, folks, feel free to stop me in between and you ask questions as well. So, but then another question is like, do you feel that Elastic Cloud on Kubernetes is more useful or convenient for you, or like running this on Kubernetes, which is a distributed system, or like you find it more convenient to run it from VM or a managed service? What do you think?
Yeah, definitely. To answer your question, definitely this ECK operator is much more useful. Like I can use Helm chart to deploy the entire cluster. So using the capabilities of Helm, I can deploy the entire cluster within just 1 or 2 minutes, compared to for installing this cluster to a VM, or I have to create those configuration files. This is a very time consuming task. Instead of using the ECK operator, if I just deploy using a Helm chart with all the capabilities inbuilt, I can spin up my cluster like within 5-10 minutes, and my entire cluster will be running fine with the Kibana monitoring. So it is a very much useful. That's why the use case today I've got for explaining what is the advantage of this operator. Definitely, it's very much useful for saving your time, energy, and resources.
So there's one question. Do you mind unmuting yourself and asking yourself, Chiranjeevi? It's completely fine. You could unmute yourself and ask questions.
Hey, Subodip, this
Yeah.
is Chiranjeevi. I'm just curious, maybe this is relevant or not relevant. Thing is like, I think I remember correctly. SAP is one of the key contributors for Knative framework. Do you use Knative at SAP?
Not really. We do not use the Knative.
I was just curious. Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, SAP is very big, and maybe a team or an org doesn't really know
correct.
what the
Yeah,
other team
correct.
might
There are
be
many
doing.
teams. Yes, somebody might have used, but here we do not use. At least I have not come across to this particular thing.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
Interestingly, I have written a guide on Knative and Elasticsearch running applications on, containers on Knative, and then connecting it to Elasticsearch sometime back. You might want to check it out. So Knative is really cool. I really like it. So folks, if you have any questions, please feel free to unmute yourself and ask, just like Chiranjeevi. If not, we might need to end the session pretty early and give some of the time back. One last question, Subhadeep, that I have from my side is like, where did you run this entire cluster? Is it on your on-prem data centers or
So actually,
your other
for the
AWS?
POC perspective, we did on premises, but there is usually we need to run in a cloud namespace. So actually, we run it in a particular what I can say, whatever it is an cloud like in AWS. So if I create the nodes, so it is an ECK. So that in a AWS ECK, we create those nodes, and these Elasticsearch things we actually host on a specific nodes on the AWS cloud.
Okay, you're talking about EKS, right? Yeah,
sorry.
Yes,
EKS, correct. So in the EKS, so Elastic Kubernetes cluster. So in the Elastic Kubernetes cluster, we provision those nodes, and those nodes actually already having the control plane in the AWS side. So they are actually this nodes configuration we run on EKS cluster.
Interesting. That's great. So thank you, Subhadeep, for the talk. I will kind of like, is it okay for you to share the deck as well, so that can we share it to the community?
Yeah, sure.
Okay,
I'll share the updated deck. So if anybody wants to refer, they can reach out to you.
So there is one more question again, like in the end, is like, can we run the Elastic cluster in complete Fargate pods?
Fargate, like Fargate is kind of serverless, right? Yes, like so we have not actually did the POC on that, but Fargate is kind of, if I want to like if I don't want to use those EC2 instances, so I think that is possible, but as we have not tried that particular one. But if I want to use this particular cluster on a serverless framework without provisioning the nodes, without not paying for those EC2 instances for hosting the nodes, I think it's pretty much possible. That's why the Fargate community and Fargate concepts are then introduced for serverless thing. So I can try that. As I have not tried, I cannot come in. But yeah, with my understanding and with my concept on this particular technology, so I think it's pretty much possible. If I want to provision or deploy or spin up your cluster on Fargate, I have to use that particular mode as Fargate for AWS VPC, so that I can provision those nodes on a serverless technology.
Okay, yeah. As far as I have heard, you could run on Fargate.
Correct.
But then I'm
because
not
it's
sure.
Kind
like,
of an serverless. Like you don't need to manage your backend infrastructure like EC2 instances. So whatever in the EC like EKS cluster, we are creating the nodes, and these nodes are nothing but individual EC2 instances, which is managed by the EKS infrastructure. Instead of if you use Fargate, your nodes will be not visible, or it won't be managed by the backend framework. Instead of it will be serverless. Yeah, you can add anything.
Yeah. So that's what I was telling. But I also recommend not using Fargate directly, because there are some caveats for stateful workloads. So Elasticsearch is a stateful deployment. It shares between the pods, right? It has containers, and containers are nodes, and nodes share data. So all of these are there. So if you're coming from a fully known Kubernetes background, then you might want to choose a more nearer version like EKS, GKE, or AKS, which are Kubernetes flavored distributions. Fargate is a different beast altogether. Fargate is like, very, very beautifully done for different sort of container workloads. Although you can go and try it out and write a blog as well. So if you want, that's always welcome. Yeah. So, okay, this one, I think, Subodhip, I'll take this question from Vishal. So AWS also has a managed Elasticsearch service. Are there any advantages of using it in cluster? So actually, AWS managed Elasticsearch is not Elasticsearch, and they are also changing it to be called as a different name, because it's really not what we ship or what we produce. So there are a ton of differences. Right from starting from the security or the free features that you use like APM, any other feature, like if you are storing logs, many apps are different, or even the Kibana itself is different. The Kibana is not Kibana there. So there are many subtle to very large differences that you would notice. So there are a lot of advantages. What I'll do is I'll just share you a comparison link so that you could go and refer to that by yourself. Yeah. Any other questions? Okay, so if not, I think we have come to the end of the session. Thanks everyone, I think, for joining. Okay, there's one more question. Okay, so feel free to pour in all your question, or unmute yourself and ask. So there's one more question, Subhadip, from Div. It's while back at EKS stack might not be open source anymore. Okay, EKS might not be open source anymore. Is that true? So EKS is not open source. EKS is
open source.
Same with GKE or AKS. Kubernetes is open source. All these are flavors running. But what I found out, you can add Subhadip on top of it. Oh, you are saying Elastic Stack. Okay, no, we have all of that. All of the source code is open. And I don't know if you are still calling open source or open or whatever you want to do, but then we do everything in public. And Elasticsearch, Logstash, Kibana, everything is open and free, and it will remain as so. And there will be no changes for you. That nothing is changing. You could go to the GitHub and go read more about it. But apart from that, if you are able to download Elasticsearch, Logstash, Kibana, Beats, or anything, today it's been probably 3 or 4 years that even several licenses changes have been happened. But then other than that, as a user, it really doesn't concern you. I mean, I don't think you will be affected, but everything is open and you could go and run however you want. Yeah. So yeah, sorry, Subhadip, I think that's the wrong side I have taken.
Yeah. So only thing is that you have to pay for your infrastructure. That's why this EKS and other things are coming there. So to run your cluster, for those resources, you have to pay. They are not free. But the configuration which is provided by the official Elasticsearch community, these are open source.
Yeah, so all of the tools and stuff that we are kind of producing is all for free, and then we also share free knowledge from community to you. We help, like you have seen all the channels that you could run through, right? We also have free training now, and so you could go and take that training as well. So yeah, I think if you don't have more questions, thank you for joining. But Kamlesh, any closing notes? Yep.
Thank you again, everyone, for joining. We have another session coming up, which is a 3-part series on data management. It will be conducted by one of our senior instructors. Please, you can follow our page where you have joined the link for this session today. And we'll have a lot of more sessions for ANZ and APAC on the whole. If you have any questions, please reach out to Subhadip for this session, and any other questions, you can reach out to Arvind or myself. We are always looking for speakers for our meetups. I would absolutely love for you to join again. And thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good day.